My biological mother kicked me out to start a new family, and now she's come back asking for college money for my siblings after finding out I've become successful. The feeling of abandonment haunted Emma from an early age. Raised by a single mother, Laura, Emma grew up believing that her mother's love would always be a constant in her life. However, everything changed when Laura married Harry and had twins. The moment the new family was complete, Emma found herself pushed aside, as if she no longer fit into the picture. It was as if she had never existed, or worse, that she had become a burden. At 16, after years of drifting apart, Emma was forced out of the house. Her mother, who had once promised to stand by her, now distanced herself further, prioritizing Harry's children over her own. Emma's heart shattered as she realized that the woman she had always depended on no longer saw her as worthy of support. The pain of being cast out, like an unwanted guest in her own home, was overwhelming. She had been there for her mother through every challenge, every hardship. Yet when the time came to prove that love, her mother chose the new family instead. Emma found herself alone, with only the comfort of her grandparents who took her in, offering a semblance of safety, but never the emotional warmth she had hoped for. The rejection cut deep, leaving her with a burning question. How could someone so important to her be so willing to let her go? Her heartache became a silent companion, one that lingered as she navigated a life without the family she once believed she could rely on. Despite the overwhelming pain of being rejected by her own mother, Emma found the strength to pick up the shattered pieces of her life. The world around her seemed cold and indifferent, but Emma refused to let that define her. Forced to move in with her grandparents, she quickly realized that the road ahead would not be easy. The financial strain was immense, and the emotional weight even heavier. But with a quiet, fierce determination, Emma took on the challenge of becoming financially independent. She took a part-time job, one that barely covered the bills but allowed her a sense of control, of agency in a world that had left her feeling powerless. She knew she couldn't rely on her grandparents forever. Their age was beginning to show, and she didn't want to burden them more than she already had. So, she worked tirelessly, juggling school and her job, slowly chipping away at the obstacles life had thrown her way. The pain of being cast aside by her own mother never truly left, but Emma chose to let it fuel her rather than break her. Every paycheck she earned, every small victory along the way, became a testament to her resilience. She wasn't going to let the rejection define her. In the quiet moments of the night, when the weight of loneliness pressed in on her, Emma would remind herself of the promises she had made to herself, to stand tall, to survive, and ultimately, to thrive. Her journey had only just begun, and though it was filled with uncertainty, Emma was no longer afraid. She was ready to fight for her future, even if it meant doing so alone. Emma's path was never meant to be easy, but she had learned to embrace the struggle. As she moved forward with her life, working multiple jobs and trying to balance her studies, she faced an unexpected challenge: her college education. The weight of her mother's rejection still hung over her, like a shadow she couldn't escape. Despite doing everything on her own, Emma realized that without financial support, her dreams might slip further from reach. The tuition fees for her college courses were astronomical, and she felt the pressure mounting as deadlines loomed and the threat of debt grew closer. One day, Emma, desperate and exhausted, decided to take a chance. She reached out to her grandparents, who had always supported her emotionally, but couldn't offer the financial help she needed. With tears in her eyes, she explained the magnitude of the situation, hoping that somehow someone could pull her from the edge. But they were old and frail, unable to help in the way she had hoped. The fear of failing, of losing the opportunity to build a better future, gnawed at her. Her heart raced and her hands trembled as she considered her options. In a moment of raw desperation, Emma contacted a distant relative, someone who had always been kind to her but never very involved. To her surprise, this relative agreed to co-sign her loan, offering her a lifeline at the most critical moment. But just as Emma thought she had found her way, a devastating realization hit. The emotional cost of relying on anyone was a price she wasn't sure she could pay. Emma thought that, after years of striving to overcome the past, she had finally built a stable life for herself. But the sudden reappearance of her mother shattered that illusion. It had been years since they last spoke, and Emma had long accepted the painful reality that her mother had chosen to prioritize her new family over her. So, when Laura, her mother, suddenly reached out with a message of congratulations for Emma's success, Emma could feel a gnawing sense of unease creeping in. Her success had always been something she had to prove, not just to the world, but to herself. And now, her mother was reappearing at the most inconvenient time, showing no sign of remorse or acknowledgement for the years of neglect. When Emma finally let herself believe that she might find closure, that maybe her mother had changed, Laura and her husband, Harry, arrived uninvited at her door. What was meant to be a simple family visit quickly turned into something much darker. The conversation started with congratulations on Emma's promotion, but soon it took a twisted turn. Instead of celebrating her achievements, her mother and Harry immediately began pleading for financial help. Emma's stomach twisted as they explained their financial struggles, and before she could even respond, her mother had already made it clear. Emma was expected to pay for the twins' college tuition. The audacity of the request, after years of being pushed aside, left Emma speechless. The raw emotions that had been buried for so long bubbled to the surface, and her heart pounded in her chest. Her mother's calm demeanor, as if nothing had ever happened, felt like a slap in the face. This wasn't a simple family reunion, it was an emotional manipulation, an attempt to turn Emma into a savior for the very people who had abandoned her. The pressure of their words, the expectation that Emma would just give in, felt suffocating. She had come so far, built so much on her own, and yet here they were demanding she give it all away. Emma's pulse raced as she realized that this moment was her breaking point. Emma stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest as her mother's request echoed in her ears. She had hoped, even for just a fleeting moment, that this visit was a sign of reconciliation, a chance for them to rebuild what had been shattered years ago. But instead, Laura's calm words about needing financial help for the twins sliced through her like a knife. The audacity of it all after everything Emma had gone through. After being discarded like nothing, her mother was now demanding money for the children she had always put above Emma. The years of abandonment, the silent nights spent longing for a mother's love and support, suddenly crashed back over her like a tidal wave. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Anger surged through her veins, followed by a bitter taste of betrayal. Emma had fought so hard to get where she was, scrapping and struggling every step of the way. And now, they expected her to hand it all over? Emma's frustration was reaching its boiling point. Her mother, Laura, had crossed a line that Emma never thought she would. The more she listened to her mother's pleading, the more the weight of years of rejection and betrayal sank in. Her heart raced with anger, her chest tightening as Laura tried to gaslight her, making her feel guilty for standing up for herself. "You should understand," Laura said with that familiar tone, as if her actions were justifiable. "We had to put the twins first. You were old enough to take care of yourself." Old enough to take care of myself. Those words stung, a reminder of how Emma had been abandoned without a second thought. The anger she had kept buried for so long began to bubble up, threatening to overflow. The coldness in her mother's voice, the complete lack of empathy, was the final straw. Emma could no longer hold back the years of resentment. "You made that choice," Emma snapped, her voice shaking with emotion. "You chose them over me, and now you expect me to clean up your mess? You didn't care about me then, so don't pretend like you do now." Her mother's face flickered with disbelief, but Emma wasn't finished. The memories of her lonely nights, the fear of never being good enough, all came crashing down. She couldn't keep pretending. "I'm done," Emma said, her voice steady but filled with a newfound strength. "I don't owe you anything. Not anymore." The silence in the room was suffocating. Emma's heart pounded, the weight of her decision hanging heavily in the air. Her mother's desperate, pleading look only made her feel more resolute. This was the moment Emma had waited for. She had finally taken control of her life, and she wasn't going to let anyone, not even her own mother, take that away from her. The tension in the room was suffocating as Emma stood her ground, watching her mother's face shift between disbelief and anger. Laura's voice quivered with desperation, but Emma could hear the manipulation beneath her words. "I did what I thought was best," Laura said, her eyes pleading, as if begging Emma to understand. "You were old enough to leave, and the twins, they needed me more." The words, once again, cut deep. Emma clenched her fists at her sides, fighting back the surge of rage threatening to consume her. It was the same story, the same justification for the years of neglect. Her mother had never once acknowledged how Emma had fought to survive on her own, how she had been pushed out like some inconvenient burden. The years of emotional scars were all too fresh, and now, in this moment, her mother wanted to rewrite history, as if Emma had just been a phase she outgrew. "I was a teenager, Mom. I didn't have the choice," Emma shot back, her voice rising with the weight of all the unsaid things that had built up over the years. Her mother's words felt like a slap to her soul. How dare she sit there, pretending like she had made the right decisions? And then, just when Emma thought she couldn't take it anymore, her mother uttered the one thing that pushed her over the edge. "You're overreacting. It's not that big of a deal." The audacity, the sheer callousness. Emma's entire body shook with fury, and in that instant she realized something vital. There was nothing left to salvage. The family she had once hoped would accept her back was nothing more than a facade. And this was the final betrayal. She wasn't just a child anymore. She was done pretending that love could exist where there was only manipulation and regret. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. The door closed behind her with a finality she had never known. It was over. Emma stood there, her heart pounding in her chest as the weight of the moment settled over her. This was the final confrontation, the last time she would ever allow herself to be dragged back into this toxic cycle. Her mother's face, filled with both frustration and helplessness, was a reminder of everything Emma had endured. She had given them chances, tried to hope for change, but the truth was now painfully clear. This was never about love or family. It was about control. As her mother's voice trailed off, pleading one last time, Emma could feel the anger and sadness rising within her. The years of trying to win her mother's affection, the years of silently carrying the weight of her abandonment, had all been for nothing. Laura's desperate attempts to make Emma feel guilty only made her more resolute. Emma had long since stopped needing her mother's validation. She had built a life without them, piece by piece, and she was proud of it. The emotional manipulation was too much to bear. Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself as she delivered her final words. "You wanted me gone all those years ago, and now you want something from me. I'm done." The finality in her voice was unmistakable. She had given everything she had, and now she was taking back control. With her head held high, she walked away, knowing that leaving was the hardest, but also the most liberating choice she had ever made. The door closed behind her, and with it, the chapter of her life that had kept her chained for so long.